All right, so today we are solving one-step inequalities. It's the 22nd of February, and I'm going to start off with a refresher. So in order to solve one-step inequalities, first we need to remember how we solve one-step equations, and then after we do that, we're going to talk about the graphing rules and how to graph these. So when solving equations, use the inverse operations. That is SADMAP. And the properties of equality, and perform operations on both sides to keep things equal or balanced. So I've got 4 quick equations for us to solve. So if I have 4 plus x equals 10, I'm going to use the inverse operations. So if I have a positive 4 and it's being added, then in order to move this 4 and isolate the x variable, I need to subtract 4 so that I make 0. This makes 0. If I do it to one side, I have to do it to the other as well. This goes away, and I'm left with just an x, and 10 minus 4 is 6. And that's my final answer. So because there was addition here, a positive number, I'm going to use subtraction, the inverse operation of addition, to move this and make a 0 and isolate my variable. Here I want this x by itself. So in order to get rid of this negative 12, I'm going to have to add a 12 to both sides. This side, it makes a 0, and I've isolated my x variable. And then on this side, 40 plus 12 is 52. And that's my answer. With multiplication, we see the numbers are side by side. And when the numbers are side by side, that is multiplication. So in order to undo multiplication, I'm not making 0 this time. I'm actually going to divide by this number so that I end up with a 1x, because these 2 over 2, 2 divided by 2 makes 1. And really I'm left with a 1x. But if there's ever a 1x, I just leave that 1 off and I have just an x by itself. If I divide it by 2 on one side, I'm going to divide by 2 on the other. And this leaves me with x is 15. And then lastly, I have x being divided by 10. So the inverse operation of division is to multiply by 10, because 10 over 10 makes a 1. And now I have 1x. But remember, I don't write 1x, I just write x alone. If I multiplied by 10 on one side, I multiply by 10 on the other. So in this case, x is 20. So just a reminder of our inverse operations. You have to use the inverse operation, and then once we have more than one step, we need to follow the SADMAP, the inverse order of operations, to find the answer using math in the correct order. The next thing is, when you find your answers, you're going to have to graph. So something I need to remind you of, and some people struggled with this a little bit on the last assignment, but if I have a greater than or less than symbol, greater than or less than, the answer, the number, so like let's say I have x is greater than 3 or x is less than 3. If I have this, 3 is not a solution. 3 is not a solution. So I'm going to use an open circle at the number because it is not a solution. It's not included as a solution. I can have, if x is greater than 3, I could have 3.1 or 3.000001. It's a 2, sorry. But I'm going to use an open circle at 3 because 3 is not an answer. I can go all the way up to 3 depending on which one I'm doing, but I cannot include 3 because 3 is not an answer. 3 is not greater than 3, or 3 is not less than 3. And then let's say that this is x is greater than 3. Okay, so on this, I'm graphing x is greater than 3. Because the variable is first, this arrow of the greater than symbol is pointing to the right, which means I'm going to shade to the right. So the arrowhead I have here matches the arrowhead I have here as long as my variable is first. With these, this is greater than or equal to or less than or equal to. So x is greater than or equal to 3. Well, this means my solutions could be 3, 4, 5, 5,000. Okay, anything that's 3 or bigger, which means that 3 is included as a solution. So closed circle at the number because yes, it is a solution. So if x is greater than or equal to 3, so 2, 3, 4, we want to say that 3 is a possible answer. With this open circle, we're saying 3 is not a possible answer, but with this closed circle, we're saying 3 is. And then if x is greater than or equal to 3, this little arrowhead should match this little arrowhead. So basically all solutions to this are to the right of 3, and it includes 3 too. So just a reminder about your graphing rules. This is really critical to understanding how to properly graph, whether the number in the inequality is not equal or it is equal. I'm using that open and closed circle. Next part. So now we're actually going to solve inequalities. We have a couple of rules. With adding and subtracting, you're going to follow the same rules as equation. We're simply going to, if there is addition, we're going to use subtraction, that inverse operation. If there's subtraction, we're going to use addition. But when it gets to multiplying and dividing, we follow the same rules, but, and that just made that hard to read. If you multiply or divide by a negative value, you are going to reverse the inequality symbol. And that'll make sense here in just a second. First, we're going to do some adding and subtracting practice. All right, I'm going to pause it, write some problems down for you. All right, so here are 6 adding and subtracting inequalities to solve. So you're going to solve them, and then after you solve them, you're going to put them on the graph. And I put 3 tick marks on all of my graphs because I want you to include 3 numbers. And then you're going to use your open or closed circle, and you're going to draw your arrow to show all of the possible solutions. So I'm going to do the first 2 just to show you, and then you can pause and look at the answers. So I have plus 38, so I'm going to subtract 38 on both sides. This gives 0, so x is less than or equal to 50 minus 38 would be 22. 22? Is that right? 2 makes 40. So no, 12. I'm bad at math. So x is less than or equal to 12. So let's do 11, 12, 13. It's less than or equal to, so I'm going to include 12 as a possible solution, and it's less than. For number 2, I have x minus 26. Since it's subtraction, I'm going to use addition. This makes 0, so it goes away. X is greater than or equal to, and then 90 plus 26 is 116. So I need to put my numbers on here. So let's see, 100, 116, 150. I don't care what numbers you put on here. This says I'm also including 116 as an answer because x could be 116, and then it's greater than. It goes this way. Right, you can pause the video, solve the other problems, and then unpause to see the solutions. All right, here we are with the solutions. So I did 1 and 2 with you. Number 3, we have t is greater than or equal to 5. I have a closed circle at 5. I also made a mistake in the number screen. Remember that when you have negative numbers, the numbering looks backwards because the bigger the negative number is, the smaller it is. So at -5, I have a closed circle going to the right. Number 4, we have x is greater than or equal to 16. So we're at 16, and we're going to the right. Remember, that's a closed circle. Number 5, we have an open circle at 2, and we're going to the left. Number 6, we have an open circle at 24, and we're going to the right. So now let's do some multiplying and dividing. Multiplying and dividing. Let me get you some problems on here. Hold on just a second. And voila. Okay, so let's look at these. Now the rule is when you multiply or divide by a negative value, reverse the inequality symbol. Okay, so this does not have to do with if you have like some other number somewhere in the problem that's negative. It is when you're doing that inverse operation and you have a number that is negative, then the symbol's going to flip. So I'm going to do all of these with you. So 4x is less than or equal to 18. So 4x means I'm multiplying. So I'm going to divide by 4 on both sides. And 18 divided by 4 is something and a half. So this is 1. So x is 4 and a half. X is less than or equal to 4 and a half. So like 4, 4 and a half, 5. It's or equal to, so I'm going to use a closed circle, and it's less than, so to the left. D divided by 7 is greater than or equal to 15. It's being divided, so in order to get it by itself, I'm going to have to multiply by 7 on both sides. This makes a 1D, and then 15 times 7 is 105. It's greater than, it's not or equal to, so I have 105, let's say 100 and 110. It's not included, so I'm using open circle, and it's pointing to the right. Number 9 is one where it gets tricky because I have a negative 3.4n that I'm going to have to be dividing by. So I'm going to divide by negative 3.4. And what I like to do when I'm dividing by negatives, I like to go ahead and circle this symbol because that reminds me that I'm going to have to flip it. So 17 divided by negative 3.4. So what happens is this 17, this number was positive, and when I divide it by a negative, the sign is going to change. And so since this sign changes, I'm reversing the side of 0 that I'm on, which is why I have to reverse the direction of my inequality symbol. So this is going to be negative 5. So m, and then flip it, negative 5. So all the solutions that will work for this are greater than or equal to negative 5. And we flip, this will make sense because if you don't flip it, you're going to use smaller numbers, and when you multiply smaller numbers by a negative, it's going to get even smaller. It's never going to become this positive number that we need here. So m is greater than or equal to negative 5. So like negative 5, negative 10, and 0. It's equal to, so I'm going to use a closed circle. I'm going to go to the right. Same thing is happening in 10. I have a negative 5. And since this is being divided by negative 5, I'm going to multiply by negative 5 on both sides. This is going to give me k, and since I multiplied by a negative, I'm going to flip the symbol, reverse the symbol, and then 12 times negative 5 is negative 60. K is greater than, so it's not equal to, so it's open circle, and then it's going to the right. Also a negative, dividing by a negative, x, I'm going to flip it, and this will be negative 8. So negative 8, negative 6. X is a less than, so I'm not going to include 8 as a solution, and I'm going to go to the left. Last problem. So x is being divided by 4. It doesn't matter that this is a negative number because this one that I'm going to multiply or divide by on both sides is not going to change. So I'm going to multiply by 4. And since I'm multiplying by 4 and it's a positive 4, I don't do anything with my symbol. This just gives me x. My symbol stays the same. And negative 12 times 4 is negative 48. And the reason that this one doesn't change is because that is a negative and it's getting more negative. And if I were to be multiplying by a negative, it would flip the sign, but it's not happening here. So x is less than or equal to negative 48. I just counted by 12s. It's or equal to, so close circle, and then it's pointing to the left, so I'm going to go to the left. All right, you have IXL homework. Good luck. You're awesome. And remember this rule. Multiply or divide by a negative value, you reverse the inequality.